think that the guy I would try to fight because it would be such a challenge would be.
We are here today with Action Jackson. Jackson Glass, thank you for joining us today on Coffee with Killers. Take us back to your early childhood. How was it growing up in the Glass House?
I started off, I was born in New York. I lived there for only about 3 years. I didn't train out in New York yet. I was still really young. I moved to Austin when I was like 3.5. I started training jiu-jitsu like right before I turned 4. And then from there, I just did jiu-jitsu first, just training in the gi. I started training first. No one else in my family started training. About like 5 years later, my dad trained for a little bit. Then my sister trained, Charlie. From there, we started doing Muay Thai together, and then it kind of went from there. But I really started jiu-jitsu first in my first gym called Gracie Baja, and then I switched over to Fight Factory about 6 years ago, and that's where I've ever been since.
What's the typical day in the life of Jackson? What time do you get up, eat, train, and sleep?
Okay. Usually, some days depend. Like weekdays, I usually get up around 7-ish. When I'm in fight camp, I usually always do this, but kind of leaning towards fight camp, I'll go to the gym, like Gold's Gym, and do some sauna and cardio at about like 7:30ish. Then I'll either go to Ambush or B Team. I'll do a Muay Thai or striking session with Damien and my head coach Elton. We'll do striking from about 10 to 11:45. Then I'll train jiu-jitsu from 12 to 2. Usually either B Team or Fight Factory. Then I'll come back home, go to Ambush with my sisters. We'll train from about 4:30 to 8:30. I'll come home. I try to go to sleep by about 10:30, but it just depends the day.
I know a lot of today's top MMA and jiu-jitsu stars were homeschooled. What do you feel like the pros and cons are of being homeschooled?
Pros is definitely getting to train more because I can train as much as I want. I stopped doing school about a little over a year ago. After my 16th birthday, I really stopped doing as much school and just really been focusing on jiu-jitsu and striking. Really leaning towards MMA. The cons, I don't know how many cons there are. Probably just not as smart, as some other people. But that's the risk I'm taking to try to be like in the UFC and try to be a champ.
Who were your biggest influences growing up?
Biggest influences. I really like watching Conor McGregor when I was growing up because he was kind of like the big deal. I really actually enjoyed watching Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I always really like watching his fights. He was really fun to watch. For jiu-jitsu, I was looking at people in jiu-jitsu, but there wasn't as many. It was kind of MMA. And then for boxing, it was like Floyd Mayweather. I always love watching him just because he was undefeated and he never lost. I really like that.
I've heard the whole Glass family is in the gym training. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, so usually every day me and my sisters will go to Ambush at about 4:30. My sister Charlie, she's been training for about 4 years in Muay Thai. She started training jiu-jitsu even before I started training jiu-jitsu at younger than like 3.5. My sister Stella, she never did jiu-jitsu, but she's been doing Muay Thai for like 3.5 years, 4 years. She won the TBA tournament last year, which is a really big tournament in Muay Thai. I've won that 3 times. She won it. She had a faster knockout than I've ever had, so it was pretty cool to see. My dad used to train a lot of jiu-jitsu at my first gym. He stopped training after that, and my mom, she's done a lot of Muay Thai with me, and she holds pads for me all the time. And then she competed once at like a scrimmage Muay Thai thing, so it's pretty cool.
Do you see your sisters making some moves in the future following your footsteps in MMA or Muay Thai?
To be honest, I don't know how much they want to do MMA. I know they really enjoy training with me and sparring and doing stuff like that. But I don't know how much they want to do MMA in the future, but it would be cool if they did follow my footsteps.
If you could have only one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
One food. That's hard to choose. I like sushi a lot, and I like pizza a lot. Actually, the one food I would have for the rest of my life would probably be chicken Alfredo. It's like one of my favorite things. I have it almost every time before a competition or a fight.
When did you realize you wanted to do MMA?
I don't remember a time that I didn't want to do MMA. Since I was like a really young kid, I was just always in martial arts, and then from there on, I just decided, I really want to do MMA, and my parents just always kept me in it. They always had me doing jiu-jitsu, eventually had me doing different martial arts like boxing and Muay Thai. Then from there, it was just, I was just always watching fights, always watching jiu-jitsu, and, just all I really know, is fighting.
How important are your mom and dad in your life, and how did they help support or influence you?
Yeah, they're probably the most important thing in my life. But I wouldn't be here without them, because without them, I wouldn't have been able to have all these really good opportunities and be around all these good people. My dad just drove me around for 13 years until I could finally drive and take me anywhere. We were driving all the way downtown. Doing 3 or 4 sessions a day every day, and we've paid people to help take me down. When they couldn't take me if they were busy working. So I wouldn't be here without them.
If you could go back in time to anywhere in your life, where would it take you and why?
I don't know how much I would go back, how far I would go back. I probably would have just started maybe working on wrestling earlier, because wrestling is such a big thing in MMA, and it's just like striking. If you can't strike in MMA, you're not really going to go far. If you can't wrestle in MMA, you're definitely not going to go far. So maybe wrestling a little bit earlier, and maybe I wish I wrestled in a school or wrestled part of a team, but that's kind of all I would really do differently. I think otherwise I'm doing a lot of the right stuff. Maybe fix a couple things when it comes to competitions, like mindset before a competition, or how I view competing. But that's it.
What do you like to do on your free time? Do you play video games?
I used to play a lot more video games. A couple years ago, I was playing a lot of Madden. I'm really big into sports like football, basketball, stuff like that. I played a lot of Madden for a couple years. I play a lot of Call of Duty with some of my friends from the gyms, but not as much as I used to. I wish, but I can't do as much as I used to.
What would you say was your favorite video game?
My favorite video game, definitely Madden 20. That's when I was playing a lot. I was trying to play competitive. I was trying to, make a second career for myself, but I ended up falling off. So no more Madden for me.
Are there any setbacks in life that you had to deal with, and how did you get past them?
Not so much setbacks. I've thankfully never been injured. Hopefully that stays. I don't get injured ever super bad. Other than some broken toes. I broke my toe before my last fight, which did suck because I couldn't kick or move with it as well. But I can still work around that. But thankfully nothing like that. Losing in tournaments is one thing, but I don't see that as much as a setback, because I was still really young when if I did lose, it was still really young, so it didn't matter as much. But probably the only thing that really set me back from was before my last fight, hurting my toe. That really sucked. It just now got better maybe 2 weeks ago, and I hurt it in September, so that did really suck.
How do you mentally prepare for a fight?
I think from all the training I've done and all the competition I've done from jiu-jitsu, even though jiu-jitsu is very different competing than MMA or boxing, but I think honestly being able to spar such high-level guys, I sparred UFC champions, guys in the top 5, top 10, top 15, really good regional guys. It just kind of gets me prepared that if I can deal with these guys and do well, even though sparring is different than fighting, it can still prepare you mentally, I can really do this. Even if you have a bad day in the gym, everyone has bad days in the gym, and kind of knowing that it's just a bad day. One day doesn't define you, and you kind of get over that. I think another thing is just the training I do, every day if I go to jiu-jitsu, I'm training at B-Team or Fight Factory, I'm getting into scraps with guys, I'm having to dig deep in training, or I'm going to spar, I'm sparring with Damien, I'm sparring with my teammates Diego, or I'm going to Vegas and sparring with Cody Steele, Marab. These guys get me very prepared for, at least right now, the guys I'm fighting, they're not going to give me something I haven't seen before,
Do you ever get nervous or anxious? If so, how do you handle these emotions?
I get slightly nervous, not for losing or my opponent, but just about performing well. I used to, when I was younger and compete, I would think a lot about just winning, and I wouldn't do as well because I would worry so much about winning. And I feel like I didn't perform as well, versus now I just kind of go in there with all I'm looking to do is perform well, and I know I'll do better than just focusing on winning. I would still win a lot. I feel like if I focus on winning, but I wouldn't perform well, which I really started caring about performing when I started competing a lot more in ADCC tournaments. Me and my really close friend Davis, we would travel all the time. Your guys' jiu-jitsu coach, we would travel a lot to Orlando or Atlantic City and compete in tournaments where in the beginning I wasn't doing as good, and then towards the end I was starting to do really well, and I felt way better in competition. So I think a big thing too is just competing a lot and practicing your mindset. I think that's a big thing people don't think about is competing is a skill, and if you can't compete well, you can be as good as you want in the gym, but if you can't compete well, it doesn't really matter as much.
If you could fight one person from the past or today, It can be anyone, a fighter, a person on TV, like literally anybody. Why would you fight them?
Only from the past
Past or today?
or today? Hmm. I think that the guy I would try to fight because it would be such a challenge would be Ilya Taporia, just because he's the boogeyman right now. No one's beating him. He's knocking everybody out. He just knocked out Max Holloway. I think that'd be the guy that we'd game plan for and the fight to make. But we'll see. Maybe one day in the future.
Who's your favorite UFC fighter and why?
Favorite UFC fighter. I really like Charles Oliveira. I think his style is super exciting. He always puts on exciting fights, and it's always a roller coaster watching him. I really like the way he is, the way he kind of acts. I like Payne Talbot a lot. He's really good, exciting, pretty up and comer, but his style is super fun to watch.
What was your favorite vacation and where did you go?
Probably last year, me and my family went to Miami. That was really fun. I'm a big Miami Dolphins fan, so we went to a Miami Dolphins game on Christmas Eve. We ended up winning, which was really fun. We did a bunch of stuff at the beach. We went to a lot of different places, a lot of different theme parks. I think that was definitely one of my favorite ones.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years from now?
10 years from now, at 27, I see myself as a UFC champion and undefeated, and I'm going to say the number one pound for pound fighter in the UFC.
Yeah. We've seen you choose a submission for your last fight rather than a knockout. What was behind that decision?
Ooh, good question. My first fight, I didn't know too much about him. I just knew I saw a couple of videos, his striking didn't look as good, and it was my first fight. I want to get the crowd hyped up, so I just want to strike. My last opponent, I saw he had a lot of fights, and he never got finished on the feet, but he had a big hole in his grappling. So me and my coach were talking, and I felt confident I could outstrike him for sure, and I felt good on the feet, but there was such a big hole in the grappling that I just want to get it over with, right? It's like, if I don't have to take any damage, I'm not going to, because I have I'm only 17. If I'm going to fight probably 30 more times in my life, I don't want to take damage that I don't have to take. So we ended up just deciding that I should grapple this guy and get out of there quick.
Do you have any fights lined up in the future or anyone you would like to call out?
I'm probably going to be fighting in February, either February 7th or February 21st. That's the plan right now. No one I want to call out. I'm just looking to make my pro debut and slowly climb the ranks.
I heard you're flying out to Las Vegas. Is that something you can talk about?
Yeah, I'm flying out to Vegas actually right after this. I'll be training with Cody Steele, Marab. Marab's got a title fight coming up. A lot of really good guys out at Syndicate. Syndicate's a super good gym. They get so many high-level MMA guys in there, really good jiu-jitsu. John Wood runs a really good program. And then Nogi Worlds is happening on, I think, Thursday through Sunday in Las Vegas as well. So I'll go there to watch some of my friends compete.
Who are your current sponsors? Can you tell us a little about them?
Yeah, Level Black. Level Black's really kind of blew up in jiu-jitsu over the past 2 or 3 years recently. I think they have over 120,000 followers. Everybody wants to wear the LXB. Everyone's kind of wanting to get sponsored by them. Everyone's kind of tagging them and stuff. So they've been super supportive of me, and I really appreciate all they've done. Another one is Armbar. They got the best cookies. I eat 1 or 2 a day almost every day. I love working with them, and they're great people. Those are kind of my main sponsors right now.
What is some advice you would give others thinking of going into MMA, like what they need for their mindset and lifestyle to be successful?
I think with the biggest thing it's kind of relates to anything you do is you have to be consistent. Big thing, me and my close team, me, Damien, and Elton and Diego really think about is we want to train with guys that are consistent or dedicated. We don't want guys that are going to come in here and take a lot of days off, or if we're doing a bunch of practices, they're going to show up to half the practices. They're not locked in like us. So I think a big thing is just being consistent, and if you really want it, you really got to push for it, because at the end of the day, the sport isn't easy. It's like if you're going to play in the NFL, if you're going to play basketball, these guys didn't get good by just giving their 50% or 60%. I think it is a little bit easier in MMA sometimes if you're at a heavier weight class, because some of these guys hit so hard, they only need one shot, right? Versus basketball and NFL, it's it can be a lot harder, right? These guys have to put in so much work just to maybe get a shot. But I think the big thing here is you have to be really committed to it. I don't do much school anymore. But I'm only committed to MMA and jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, whatever, trying to get the best at that. So I'm giving my 100% to that, right? And I think that's kind of what you have to do. There's definitely guys that get away with not doing all that. I'm not saying you have to be only homeschool kids get to the UFC, whatever. But it definitely gives me an advantage, right? Whole goal is to have a slight advantage over my opponents, and I think that's what I'm having right now.
Well, thank you, Jackson, for coming out to Coffee with Killers.
Where there's always something brewing.